Before you start using the point of sale invoice system, it is necessary to set up ledger accounts and items. On the items form, when you define a new item, it is necessary to set up the retail price. This retail price is used on the POS invoice. This item price will not be used on the POS invoice, it will be used on the invoice form. This price must be set up first. If you want to use multiple quantities, then you must enable unit quantity from the invoice setting. And if you want to calculate the price on box quantity, then this option should be unchecked. If this option is checked, then the amount will be calculated on total quantity. So if a box contains 4 items and there are 3 boxes, and if price is $100, then total amount will be $300 if this is unchecked. If this is checked, then the amount will be calculated on total quantity, that is multiplication of unit quantity and quantity. Once items are set up, it is also necessary to set up the ledger accounts. By default, ledger accounts are automatically selected. On the POS setting form, as you can see, all the ledger accounts are selected. If you want to make any changes on this form, it is necessary that you know the accounting part of Crave Invoice software. All these ledger accounts affect different aspects of Crave Invoice accounting system. For example, here, as you can see, all the sales by default goes to cash on hand ledger account. If the payment is done by a credit card, it will go to account receivable. You can change the behavior here. If you want to change the ledger account, you can change from the list, but you should know what ledger account to select. Similarly, you can change for other ledger accounts as well. If you want to keep track of the days and shift, you can enable this option. If you enable this option, on the POS data entry form, shift tracking will be done automatically. There are some other forms and reports where you can see how much data entry is done in a particular shift. To define a shift, you can go to Days Shift Setup. On this form, you can define the shift name. A shift name can be anything that you find comfortable. You must define the start and end time of each shift. Here we created one shift. Now if we can open the POS invoice entry form. This form by default do not open full screen, but you can maximize it so you won't see any scroll bars. On this form, we try to minimize the data entry, so the only thing that you have to select here is item. Everything else is generated automatically. That's why we have to define prices on the item form, prices, discounts, and taxes, all we have to set up on the item form. Although we have given option on this form to modify quantity and price, it is not recommended to change anything on this form. You can define everything back on the item form. So let's create one invoice here. In this search box, you can either type the item code or name, or if you are using a barcode scanner, the item code will be scanned once you use the scanner on the physical item. Here we will type the item code, and as you can see, the drop down is automatically displayed. Once the particular item is filtered, you just have to press the enter key. The item is added to the list. Now if you want to select the next item, you don't have to use the mouse, you just type the second item code and press enter. So far we added 2 items in this invoice, and as you can see, the total is calculated automatically. Now next step depends on what you want to do. If you want to print the invoice, then press F3. Once F3 is pressed, the invoice will save and print automatically. It will be printed to your default printer. If you have not set up the default printer, then you must do it from the control panel. If you don't want to print, you can use the save button or press F2 key from your keyboard. You can always go back to the invoice and modify it. From this, you can modify the invoice. If you have entered a wrong quantity by mistake, or if you want to make changes to the price, there are shortcuts. You can check from this list. To modify quantity, use F8 or star. The first invoice that we created, it was created without any changes in the invoice. Now, if you want to make any changes to the quantity or price, we will see how to do that. Here we selected one item, but we want to sell multiple quantity. So to achieve that, you can either scan the same item multiple times or use the quantity field to modify it. If I press star, that is asterisk on the keyboard, then the quantity field is opened for modification. Here I can put the quantity and press enter key. Once I modify the quantity, the total amount is changed automatically. For some reason, if I want to modify the price, then I have to press plus on the keyboard. I can change the price here and press enter key. As you can see, the amount is changed. Now we can save the invoice or print it. Now we will see some more information about other fields on this form. On the right side, you can see a lot of fields are there. In most of the cases, you will be going to use either of these fields. By default, this cash option is enabled. What does it mean? It means that whatever you are selling it in cash mode. You are taking cash from the customer and invoice is given to the customer. If your customer is making payment by a credit card or by any other payment mode, you can select the payment mode from the drop down. If the payment is done by a credit card, then you have to remove the amount from here and put the amount in card text box. So the amount will go to a different ledger account. This field is read-only and it will be calculated based on the amounts that you specify in these text boxes. A reference number can be anything like a check number or transaction number. There will be a separate video for loyalty points settings. The salesperson on this form is selected based on the user who is logged into the system. If we open the salesperson form, here we have linked the user with the salesperson. So if admin user logs in, then his name is automatically selected for the data entry. If you are having a repeat customer, then you may want to change the customer name from cash sales and record the sales in the particular customer's name. Then in that case, you can select the customer name from the drop down. This is how the customer is selected here, and you can also put the contact number of the customer. Because by default, sales is going into the cash account. At a later point, you will not be able to see how much sales is done by a particular customer. If you want to keep track of that, then a customer name selection is required on this form. This is the basic introduction to the POS invoice data entry. There is one more option on this form. It is called holding the invoice. When you don't want to post the invoice directly, rather you want to hold it for some time, for some reason, and create another invoice meanwhile. Other aspects of the POS invoice will be covered in a different video. This video briefly covers how to do data entry for POS invoice properly with all the settings. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel to learn more about the Crave Invoice software.